Good morning, everyone. We are in a random park that I found. I was at a client's house yesterday and drove past this, and I hadn't seen that before. And the cool thing about Asheville is these are sprinkled everywhere, just random little outcroppings in the trees. And it is definitely a tree canopy. This is Meadow Park. This is right across from the gym I go to, Biltmore Fitness. I wanted to just briefly touch on the power of early morning habits. I was never a morning person. I've never had an issue getting up in the morning per se, but I'm definitely not doing anything first thing in the morning until probably about 2 years ago. And I guess that's when I got busy. That's when my days just started filling up with to-do things like actual adulting or things like that. But I found that I definitely can't do anything intense in the morning, so I'm not doing my most productive work. I'm not, not firing on all cylinders yet. But if I can get out of my house or not, or just do like a stretching routine in the morning, if I can get in a walk first thing in the morning, I almost don't need coffee. Like my metabolism revs up pretty quickly. And I think that's the same way for a lot of people. The morning is the only time that's yours before life happens, before responsibility kicks in, before the day gets away from you, as it were. So we are we are in Fern Gully right now. Let me see if I can give you a snapshot. The cool thing about Western North Carolina is, well, cool is a relative term. There is ivy everywhere. So there's kudzu, a lot of poison ivy, but just the vines covering the trees, and it's very, very mystical when the sunshine first starts to hit it. But I just want to go over some like really cool trends I see online in fitness. So walking is becoming cool again. There's a period where I look down on walking because you could be running, but more and more the research is walking is fantastic for your digestion, just for getting your blood moving, for getting neurotransmitters fired up. Like I said, if you could just get 15-20 minutes in the morning, preferably in nature, but that's just me. Some people don't have the time to get to a place like this and are stuck on concrete, whatever. Especially if you can have it to yourself, meaning don't put in a podcast or anything, or unless you're going to listen to something either educational or that just puts you in a good mood for the rest of the day. This is the only 100% way to build autonomy and self-efficacy, meaning for you to say you're going to do something and to build small wins under yourself to prove that you can do it. This is before you have any commitments, before you start thinking about chores, before the self-sabotage starts happening. So it's accessible to everyone. And the really cool part is what it does to your metabolism. So there's a nice heart rate intensity zone that walking hits, and it's basically below 65% of your max heart rate. So it's in a good intensity zone. There's a threshold where there's an oxygen to carbon dioxide ratio. And this is an entire page in books, in like personal training books, where they tell you what you're burning for fuel predominantly based off of your heart rate. It's different for everyone, sort of, but walking is always fat burning. So you are not only burning predominantly fat, especially first thing in the morning before you've eaten anything, so you are extending that fasting window, and you are kicking your fat metabolism up a little bit since you're now actually moving. And the longer you can extend that in the morning, the more signaling you can send to your body saying, increase the machinery that I'm using to burn fat, meaning your power plants of your cells, your mitochondria, will actually, or I should say, your cells will make more mitochondria to burn more fat. Fat burns slower and cleaner which is why whenever you kick it up into higher intensity, whenever you start like sweating from cardio, that's predominantly glucose. Fat is a slow burn. It's like a diesel fuel opposed to a gasoline fuel. It takes longer to process and digest, but whenever it burns slower and cleaner. There's less metabolic waste, as it were. So if you can upregulate those genes, which walking does, always a plus. That's why the intermittent fasting trend and world has worked so well, is if you can minimize your feeding window from like a 10 to 6 in the day, so eat for 8 hours and then not eat for 16. If you can just, fast from a big meal, 6 o'clock at night until 10 o'clock the next morning and get a little walk in at the beginning of the day, it doesn't take much to start those metabolic changes. And that's the cool thing about low level movement all the time, walking up the stairs, walking in a greenway, anything like that. Just, it's the signals you send, and it just makes you feel good. There's almost nothing that I like more than walking in a rainforest before the sun's out, but I do have to get back to my truck. I just wanted to briefly say good morning still, and remind you that it doesn't have to be intense. Whatever you choose to do for your path forward for fitness, you don't have to jump into like a high intensity workout routine. That comes later, and that's always good too. But if you can just get a walking routine in, that is phenomenal, and it'll stick around for life. Like there's almost nothing that'll prevent you from doing that. It's a time you have to yourself. It's a time you have to plan your day and to get a hold of everything before life starts happening to you and your control is ripped away. So it's just all around good. I need to start doing it more instead of going to the gym first thing in the morning, just because I don't get a great workout in the gym usually. I get my best workouts in around noon. So early morning is a great time for reflection, to set up everything, to plan. And I'm also a little more grateful for everything first thing in the morning, just because I haven't had to interact with anyone yet. And it's easy to just reflect before it gets miserably hot, when there's some water running, when you're surrounded by nature, and take a hold of everything that we're lucky to have. Until next time.